the Puttigai Mutt and the Taulava Okuta for giving me this wonderful opportunity to give a talk on such an interesting topic. So whenever we are asked to give lectures, I always consider that it's a blessing, because if you have to, as Richard Feynman once said, right, if you want to really learn something, you need to teach that. So likewise, if one has to understand a topic deeply, it's always a good idea to give a lecture. So I studied a lot of books, referred to a lot of literature around this topic. So I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present my views on this topic. So yeah, so the topic that was given to me was the following: Aham Brahmasmi, the real meaning. So I don't know what the real meaning is. However, what I have tried to do is I've tried to analyze give an unbiased analysis of this Shruti and look at the existing interpretations, precisely a couple of interpretations which are very famous. One, of course, is the Advaitic interpretation. The other is the Dvaita interpretation. So there's a bit of there's a small disclaimer that I would wish to make now in the beginning of the lecture, is that I'm not giving my opinion here. Okay, so that we can do during the question answer sessions. I'm not here to give my opinions, but just present before you the understanding that I have of two different interpretations that are given for this particular text. Okay. So we should not think of anything that I say as my opinion, but it is only the interpretation of what I understand from my readings of the different texts that are out there. Okay, having said this, let us first look at, I hope that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I just made some notes when I was studying, just for my reference. So I'll just flash those and take you through those slides. Okay, so the first question that we should ask is, what is there to analyze in this? Right? I mean, it is a text that appears in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. I'll talk about it in a while. So first of all, the question is, what is the need to analyze Shastras? And by the way, one other disclaimer is, this lecture can get a little deep and pedantic at times, but that was the topic that was given, and it is inevitable. I'll try to make it as accessible as possible, but it is going to go into a bit of details. So please bear with me on that. And if you have questions, feel free to just type it on the chat box or unmute yourself and ask me. It doesn't have to be a monologue. Okay, let's have a dialogue here. Fine. Okay, so the first question that is to be asked is, let us understand the spirit of the Shastric debates. Okay, so what is the need to actually analyze these kinds of texts? So if you look at the big picture, the big picture is that all the Shastras, everything in the Bharatiya parampara, right, in the lineage of Indian philosophy, they're constructed for the purpose of upasana, and through upasana you will attain the moksha. So everybody has, irrespective of philosophers, everybody has agreed that the ultimate goal of all Shastras is to make the jiva, or the conscious entity, attain what is called as moksha. Right. So Shastras are primarily designed to ensure that the salvation or moksha apavarga is attained. Okay. So everybody also is in the agreement that moksha is possible only through proper upasana. Right? Nanyaf pantha ayana vidyate is what is said, which means that only via proper upasana that one can attain apavarga. Now, so I mean, I have deliberately put the word proper within the quotes, because the question is, what constitutes to be the proper upasana, and that is where all the debates are. So proper upasana stems from accurate jnana. So shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha is the dictum that the Upanishad gives. So now one has to understand things first, and then analyze, which is the manana, and then do upasana, which is the nididhyasana. So for doing, I mean, moksha comes from bhakti and upasana stems from accurate jnana, or the proper jnana. So now accurate jnana should be obtained from the analysis of Shruti and Smriti. Everybody agrees. This is I'm just listing the things in which there is more or less no debate amongst Indian philosophers. So everybody says that accurate jnana should come from analysis of Shrutis and Smritis, because Upanishad of Purushaha. So everything, every knowledge that is needed for attainment of moksha comes from Shrutis and Smritis, right? Now comes the problem. Now what happens is, all the philosophical texts that are there that are considered to be the source of knowledge, which are mostly the Shruti or the Veda, and Smriti, which includes all Purusheya body of literature, the composed body of literature like Purana, Upanishad, not the Upanishad. Upanishad also is Apurusheya Shruti. So Purana, Itihasa, and the other Smriti works. All these are considered to be the source of original knowledge or jnana. Now, what has happened is, one, because of the inherent obscure nature of these Shrutis, and also the flexibility of the language in which they are composed, which is Sanskritam, so they are open to interpretations. Okay, so much so that one same Shruti can be interpreted to have two apparently contradictory meanings. Okay, I mean, this is one glaring example, right? I mean, the Aham Brahmasmi is one such example, where the text that is considered to be the source of all knowledge is obscure by construction, and thus open for interpretations. Now the question is, how does one interpret these texts? Okay, so now one might ask, right? I mean, why is these obscure by construction? Why can't it be very apparent? I mean, one of the answers that is given is Paroksha Priya Ivahi Vedaha Pratyaksha Drishaha. So, and Acharyavan Purusho Veda, which actually says that it is protected by construction, because only the ones who are blessed by an acharya, or ones who are destined to have the correct knowledge, are the ones who will get the knowledge. Now, that is why the knowledge is kind of protected by making it obscure. Now, given that the source of knowledge is obscured, the texts are obscured and open for interpretations, how does one interpret is the question. And for that, again, this is one other idea that is agreed upon by all philosophers. I just quote Sri Madhvacharya on this. He says, Yukto yuktascha yadyarthaha agamasya pratiyate syat tatra yukta evarthaha. So now what happens is, suppose you have multiple interpretations that are possible for the same, for one Shruti Vakya, or one statement of Vedas. So now amongst them, you just check, okay, which one is Yukta. Okay. So now what do you mean by Yukta? Yukta is just try to apply logic. Yukti is logic. Yukta is the one that is subject to good logic. Okay. So now if you have two possible interpretations, one which is Yukta and the other is Ayukta, you have to always choose the one that is Yukta. Okay, Yukto Ayuktascha yadi arthaha agamasya pratiyate. So if you perceive both logical and illogical meanings for one text, then syat tatra yukta evarthaha. Then you have to choose the one that is subject to good logic. And that is where, I mean, a lot of people ask me this question, that why all this logic, why people actually have these debates of what is correct, you are right, I'm wrong. The idea is not to call the other person wrong. It's never personal. Okay, so every analysis, every philosophical debate actually has this origin in this particular idea, that whenever you have a statement or a class of set of ideas that are open to different interpretations, choose the one that is subject to sound logic. Okay, so that is why, in the entirety of the Indian tradition, lineage of knowledge systems, there has always been debates. Okay, albeit there are disagreements between people, because everybody agrees upon this. So now, when there is a conflict on meaning of Shrutis, one needs to confirm the meaning using analysis. Okay, so that is what is called as the Tatparya Linga, and all the works, most of the major works that you see by all the acharyas, be it Shankaracharya or Madhvacharya, everybody adheres to this principle or dictum, where they use logic in abundance, okay, to interpret what the Shrutyartha is. That's the idea. Okay, so with this background, let us go to Okay, so this, I have to get rid of this tab somehow. Just give me a minute. Okay, so now with this background, let us go to the current Shruti of interest, which is Aham Brahmasmi. So it's a highly celebrated phrase which appears in multiple places, but the primary one that is taken is the one that appears in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Within that, there is something called Avyakrita Brahmana. In that, this text appears. So let me just read the full text for everybody's perusal once. So here how it goes. Tadahur yad brahma vidyaya sarvam bhavishyanto manushya manyante kimutad brahma avedyat tat sarvam abhavaditi brahmava idamagra asit tat atmanameva avet aham brahma asmi iti tasmat tat sarvam abhavat यद्यो देवानां प्रत्यबुध्यता स एव तदभवत् तथा ऋषीणां तथा मनुष्याणां तद्धा एतत् पश्यन् ऋषिर्वामदेवः प्रतिपेदे अहं मनुरभवं सूर्यश्चेति तदिदमपि एतर्हि एवं वेद अहं ब्रह्मास्मीति स इदं सर्वं भवति तस्यः न देवाश्चना भूत्या ईशते. So this is the excerpt, the full excerpt or paragraph from the Brihadaranyaka text, from where this famously quoted Aham Brahmasmi appears. Okay, so if somebody knows elementary Sanskrit, one can derive a superficial meaning for this entire phrase. So there is one given in a website called Dvaita.org. I've just taken it from there. I'll just read it again. So here is how it goes. Okay, people say that everything happens via Brahma Vidya. Okay, so now what did the Brahma understand that it became everything? So the question is, everybody says that one can get everything from Brahma Vidya. So now how did Brahma himself get everything, or itself get everything? What did it actually do to do it? Okay, so then it goes, in the beginning, so which is before creation, Brahma alone existed. He knew himself as Brahma, therefore he became everything else in the world. Whoever knew Brahman in this manner amongst the Devas, Rishis and Manushyas, they became that. Sri Vamadeva Rishi also cognized him in this manner, that he became Manu, Surya, etc. Therefore, whoever cognizes Aham Brahmasmi will become everything. This cannot be prevented even by gods or anybody else. So this is the superficial meaning that one can obtain by reading this text and then having some elementary Sanskrit understanding. So now here, let me just paraphrase it for everybody's understanding once. See, the Upanishad itself asks this question that, look, everybody says that one should get Brahma Vidya. If one perceives Brahma Vidya, then everything happens. Okay, I'm literally translating it as Sarvam Bhavishantah. So everything happens. Now, what did Brahma do to become everything? Okay, that is the question that Upanishad poses itself. The answer that it gives is Brahmava idamagre asit. So before the creation, or that is also something that is subject to interpretation. Okay, Brahmava idamagre asit. Agre means in the beginning. Only Brahma existed. Okay, and the Brahma knew himself or itself, or got to know himself as Brahma. Right? Aham Brahma asmiti. Atmanam eva. So Atmanam means itself, okay, or himself. Brahma, Atmanam eva, Aham Brahma asmi iti avet. So Brahma got to know itself as I am Brahman. Okay, and that is why it became everything. And it continues saying that anybody, be it a Deva or a Rishi or a Manushya, who knows or who understands that I am or Aham Brahma, let me not translate it as I am Brahma, so Aham Brahma, then they become everything. Now, Rishi Vamadeva, so what in Upanishad, what happens is that whenever Upanishad says something, it always gives a citation to a corresponding Samhita text. Okay, Samhita is one part of the Veda. Okay, Upanishad is one part, Samhita is one part. So similarly, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is doing it here. Look, the Rishi Vamadeva also did this upasana and thus said this Veda mantra, which is Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. Okay, so that is a mantra in Rigveda Samhita which says which goes as Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. the Upanishad says, by doing this sort of an upasana, Vamadeva pratipede, Rishihi Vamadevaha pratipede. The Vamadeva Rishi realized this particular mantra, which goes as Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. So it concludes by saying that anybody who does this upasana, that Aham Brahmasmi, they will become everything. Nobody can prevent them from becoming everything. Okay, so this is the superficial meaning. Okay, now comes different interpretations. So now, when one listens to this kind of a superficial meaning, multiple questions arise. Okay, so the apparent meaning which I just narrated has multiple questions and inconsistencies. The first question is, Upanishad now here talks of a Brahman, right? So the question itself says that everybody says that Brahma Vidya, by studying or attaining Brahma Vidya, everything can be obtained. What did Brahman do to become everything? So now the Upanishad is pointing out to something called Brahman, right? So now the question is, who is this Brahman that is considered here? Okay. The second question that comes is, what is meant by the Brahman becoming everything? So it says that sarvam abhavat, right? It says that Brahman became everything. So what does it mean by Brahman becoming everything? Okay. Now, the other thing that it says is that anybody who does this kind of an upasana becomes everything, right? It says that by thinking that he or she is Brahman, so they become everything. So now what does this mean to be saying that by doing this upasana of me, I should not be translating that again as me being Brahman, okay? By doing this upasana of Aham Brahmasmi, how can everything be, how can anybody become everything? What does this actually mean? Then comes this question of Rishi Vamadeva, right? I mean, Vamadeva, it also gives a citation to Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha that was revealed to Rishi Vamadeva. What is this interpretation? What is this idea of Rishi Vamadeva? What this Rishi Vamadeva saying Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. Okay. And finally, by saying all this, what is this Upanishad, this paragraph of Upanishad trying to convey? What is the central message that is being conveyed? So these are some of the, this is not an exhaustive list. There are many other questions that comes up, but I've only given you a few important questions that are to be considered while interpreting this. Okay. So let me take a 2 minutes pause here, okay, and maybe ask questions if any, because only if this context is set, then I can go to the different interpretations. Any questions so far? You can raise your hands and ask me questions.
Sir, I have one simple question. As a layman, I have not studied Shastras.
No problem. Please go on.
So why does the scriptures, they make such ambiguous statements? Is to test our capacity, or what is the reason for this?
Yeah, I briefly answered this question. Okay, let me reiterate it. See, there is a saying in Upanishad itself which says that Paroksha Priya Ivahi Vedaha Pratyaksha Dvishaha, right? Paroksha Priyaha, Upanishads and the scriptures are fond of obscurity. That's exactly what it means. Now your question is why? Because in other contexts it is said that Acharyavan Purusho Veda. The knowledge should not be free. The very word Upanishad means something that is concealed, rahasya. Okay. See, knowledge should not be free. It is to be obtained by actually doing analysis. Okay, and by going to a good guru. So because it should be, think of it like an encryption. Okay, so when I'm a computer scientist by training. So when I'm talking, right, you are listening to my voice. Okay, so when this is transmitted over the transmission channels, the voice itself is not transmitted. Okay, so what is actually transmitted is an encrypted version of this. You might have seen in WhatsApp and all these messaging platforms, right? It is there is a disclaimer that is given which says that all the messages are encrypted for privacy sake, etc. So the encryption means that anything that you need to, which is intended to be conveyed to a particular audience or a subject, and which is not to be conveyed to other class of subjects. What you do is you obscure it by some sort of encryption, and you give the encryption key to the person whom you intend that to be conveyed, isn't it? So that's the idea. So now Upanishads by design are obscured in such a way that the right knowledge only goes to people who have the real right encryption key. Any
Okay,
other
thank you.
question? Yeah. Any other question on the context of the particular Shruti in the Brihadaranyaka and what the superficial meaning is?
Perhaps I can ask later also. There are people who do upasana using different means regarding this particular verse. So the end result will be different. I assume the end result will be different for the different upasanas.
Right.
That's a question more.
Yeah, it will be, because at least in the Madhva tradition, it is said that Nanyaf Pantha Ayanaya Vidyate, which is again a quote from the Upanishad, which says that there's only one right upasana that leads to the moksha. Okay. If there aren't any other question on the superficial meaning?
Yeah, I do have a question on this very Aham Brahmasmi itself, but I think I will ask
Right.
this during after we complete this discussion.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I paused because I only wanted people to be on the same page. I just wanted everybody to get the context, and also what is the superficial meaning that we are actually talking about. Let me just repeat it for to get the context again. See, here is the complete text. The complete text talks about the question. There is a question and an answer. The question that is asked is that it is said that you will get everything from Brahma Vidya. What did Brahman do to become everything? Okay, and the answer says that it's the Brahma that existed before, and the Brahma knew itself. The Brahman knew itself as I am Brahman. Again, I'm very grossly translating it. Brahma knew itself as Aham Brahma. Okay, and because it started doing this upasana of Aham Brahma, or rather, it knew itself as Aham Brahma, that it became everything. Now, anybody who does this kind of an upasana also become sarva, also get everything. Okay, and Rishi Vamadeva also did this upasana, and thus was revealed this mantra Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. That is the entire context. Okay, and with that context, we have these questions: what is the Brahman that it is talking about? What is the meaning of becoming everything? Okay, so what is this upasana, and what is this Vamadeva story, and what is the central message? Okay, so with this prelude, let us look at two different meanings. Because when we are analyzing this, because as Venkateshji rightly pointed out, this is something that gets debated a lot, and one of the famous interpretations of this is by Sri Shankaracharya, or the Advaitic interpretation. So what I have done is I have taken from the next slide on, I've given the quotations also. All these quotations are taken straight from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhashya of Sri Shankaracharya. Okay, they're straight taken out from them. Okay, and the interpretations that are being given is mine. Okay, but the statements are from the Bhashya itself. Okay, so what I will do from now on is I'll talk about the Advaitic interpretation, and at the end, I'll also talk about the Dvaita interpretation. Okay, then we can analyze them. So here I'm being totally unbiased, and I'm just giving you the interpretations. Okay, so before going to the Advaitic interpretation, so one needs to understand what Advaita is. A short summary or a central idea of what the Advaita Vedanta is. Okay, so now the first thing is that the very word says Advaita. Okay, Brahmadvaita or Advaita. This actually means there's only one entity which is true. Okay, there is a term which is called the Paramarthika Sattva. So which is again, right? Because the language English is so limited and fragile, I'll have to somehow translate it. But these have very strong shastric meanings to all of these words. But I'll try to give an honest translation as much as possible. The first thing that Advaita says is there is only one Shuddha Chit or Parabrahma, which is this is the only true entity. Okay, so now you may ask me what is true. Let's say that it is Sat. There is only one Paramartha Sat, and it is called the Shuddha Chaitanya or Parabrahman. Okay, and everything else that we perceive, that you see here, which includes the Jiva and Jada, is a subject. Is the subject of an illusion that is possessed by an avidya upahita or a tainted Shuddha Chit, which is also called the Apara Brahma. So let me give you an example to convey this point. See, let's say that there is a rope that is out there in dark, and you perceive this as a serpent, okay, or a snake. Now, just like the rope is perceived as the serpent, the Shuddha Brahma or the Parabrahma is perceived as this entire world, the entire universe. Okay, the Upahita Chit, which is, there is the Shuddha Brahma, and Shuddha Brahma has avidya from the eternity or time immemorial, from the Anadi Kala, and Upahita Chit, which is the tainted Brahman or the Apara Brahma, sees itself as the entire world. So just like the rope is perceived as serpent, which is an illusionary object, the Brahman perceives itself as the entire universe. Okay, now that is samsara. So now what is samsara according to Advaita is this avidya, this state of being in an illusionary sense of perception, which is this entire universe. I mean, including the conversation that we are having right now, is all is subject to an illusion that the Upahita Chit is having, and that comes because of the avidya. Okay, the avidya is with the Brahman from the Anadikala, and what should happen through the sadhana is the upliftment of avidya. When the avidya is uplifted, the illusion is removed, and Shuddha Chit alone exists. To go back to our example, just as the serpent ceases to exist once the rope is revealed. First, you perceive that as a serpent. Now you go near that, and there's enough illumination there, and you realize, oh, all the while the thing that I was perceiving as a serpent is in fact rope. Okay, so that is called the badha, or the upliftment of the illusion or avidya or maya. And once that happens, serpent ceases to exist. Just like that, once the avidya is removed through shastras, the entire universe as we know will cease to exist. And what exists is the pure consciousness. Again, I don't want to translate this as consciousness. The Shuddha Chit or the Parabrahma is the one that finally becomes, finally that exists after the upliftment of avidya. Okay. Now, there's only one Atma, which is called the Brahman, and jivas are just illusionary reflections of the soul Brahman. Okay. See, while people, it is colloquially, we talk of Jiva Brahmaikya in Advaita, right? I mean, Jiva Brahmaikya doesn't mean that there is a Jiva, there is an entity called Jiva, there is an entity called Brahma, and they get submerged in Jiva gets submerged in Brahma or something of that sort. That's not what it is. Okay, so you don't say that the serpent becomes rope. Okay, Jiva Brahmaikya means that there is only one Atma. The one Atma is called Brahman, and the Brahman has come in contact with the avidya. And and the idea of Jiva is only the perception of the Brahman itself as something else, which the Brahman is not. When the avidya is lifted, what exists is the Brahman. So anyway, what exists is the Brahman. Okay, and all the perceptions, including the perception of I, you, right? Shankaracharya says in his Adhyasa Bhashya that asmat yushmat pratyaya gocharasya, right? Everything that is subject to the cognitions such as I, you, and the interactions that we do in the universe, everything in the universe is only an illusionary perception that the one Atma, which is also called the Brahman, has. So this Jiva Brahmaikya doesn't mean that there are two entities, one which is called Jiva, one which is called the Brahman, and they become numerically equal. No, that's not what is happening. So what the philosophical tenet of Advaita is that there is only one Atma, which is called as Shuddha Brahman, and there is avidya to the Shuddha Brahman, which creates the illusion of all jivas and every other vyavahara that we have in the universe. Once the avidya is uplifted, what remains is the Shuddha Brahman. So in this sense, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. In this sense, the Atma is Eka. So that's what it means to be, that is why it is called Advaita. Okay, Dvaita is the dualism, okay, non-duality. What do you mean by non-duality? There's only one Atman which is called Brahman. So it's not that there are two Atmans and they become one. That's not what it is. Okay, the definition of moksha is removal of the avidya. Okay, that is in contact with the Shuddha Brahman, and because the avidya, which is the raw material for all the illusion, is gone, all its effects are also gone. Okay, so this is a short summary of Advaita as per my understanding. Okay, so if one has this understanding, then the interpretation that Sri Shankaracharya gives on this text becomes aberrant. Okay, now you remember the questions that we asked here, right? I mean, what who is the Brahman that is considered here? What is meant by Brahman becoming everything, and so on. Okay, now the first thing that is to be noted here is that when the Upanishad says Brahmava idamagra asit, okay, so it talks about existence of one Brahman, right? So it is not talking about the Shuddha Brahman. So that is the first observation that Shankaracharya makes, that Tasmat Brahmava idamagra asit iti aparam Brahma. Okay, this is straight taken out of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhashya of Sri Shankaracharya. Says that the Brahma that is being considered here in Brahmava idamagra asit is the apara Brahma. What is apara Brahma? The Brahma that is tainted by avidya. Okay, that is the apara Brahma. We are not talking about Shuddha Brahma here at all. So the Brahma that we are talking about is the apara Brahma. In fact, jivas are also apara Brahma. Why? Because there is Shuddha Brahma, there is avidya, and because of avidya, the Shuddha Brahma perceives itself as apara Brahma, which are jivas. So the Brahman that is being talked about here is the apara Brahma. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is the word agre. There is a word here. I mean, as I said, the lecture is going to get a little deeper now and pedantic. And that's the nature of this topic. Okay, it is a deep philosophical debate, and please bear with me on that. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions on this, or maybe you can note your questions and ask me during the question answer session as well. Okay, now, and also one of the objectives of having these kinds of lectures is, I always say that this is to whet your appetite, to make you appreciate how deep the analysis are, right? When people do philosophical debates, you cannot brush aside any of the philosophy just by saying that, okay, this is good or this is bad. A lot of thought process would have gone behind every of the interpretations that people give, and just humongous amount of logical arguments that goes behind this. If I can convince you that, okay, I mean, these things are not easy, and whet your appetite to pursue this as a full-time discipline, so I think my job will be done anyway. Okay, so let's get back. So here, the first point that is to be noted is the word agre here, okay, which literally translates to before. Okay, before what? So according to the Brihad Bhashya of Shankaracharya, this word agre means before realization. Prak pratibodhat. Okay, pratibodha is the realization. So always keep that example of serpent's snake at the back of your mind. Whenever I talk of realization, I talk of going near the rope and realizing that it was indeed a rope but not a serpent. Similarly, the realization that the entire universe that we have is an illusion is the realization that is being talked of. Okay, so agre means before the realization. Okay, Brahmaiva asit sarvancha idam kintu apratibodhat aham brahma abrahma asmi asarvancha iti atmani adhyaropat kartaham kriyavan phalanancha bhokta sukhi dukhi samsari iti cha adhyaropayati. Okay, now this means that even before the realization, the entity that exists is still the Parabrahman. However, because of the non-existence of the correct knowledge, or because of the illusion, the Brahman has wrongly perceived itself as the one that does everything. So we all have this perception, right? I mean, that I am giving the lecture, you are listening to the lecture, I am going, I am coming, I am the one who is happy, I am getting sad, I am this, I am that. All these the perceptions that we have is illusion. So that is what is being referred to as here as this thing, aprabodhat abrahmasmi asarvancha iti. So in fact, even before the prabodha or the knowledge, what existed was the Parabrahma. However, because of illusion, Parabrahma or the Apara Brahma will have all these illusionary perceptions. That is, I am not Brahma. Okay, I am not everything. I am the one who does this. I am the one who is happy. I am the one who is unhappy, etc. Right? Now he says Then with the help of a compassionate teacher, the Apara Brahma realizes its real nature by knowing itself as Brahman. Okay, so let me just read the Bhashyavakya again. Kathanchid acharyena dayaluna pratibodhitam nasi samsari iti atmanameva avet swabhavikam avidya adhyaropita vishesha varjitam iti tat brahma atmanameva nitya drugrupam adhyaropita anitya drishtya varjitameva avet viditavan. So that's the meaning. Now, tat brahma atmanameva avet viditavan. Okay, tat brahma, that Brahman. What is that Brahman that we are talking about here? The Apara Brahman, which are jivas like us. Atmanameva, oneself itself. It realized the oneself itself as what? Avet. It realized the self itself. Okay. Now, how did it do it? Kathanchid acharyena dayaluna pratibodhitam. So a guru or an acharya comes, who is a compassionate teacher. The dayalu acharya comes and he says, hey, look, you are actually not the samsari. He says that. When this was done, atmanameva avet. So this Apara Brahma realized the self as atmanameva aham brahma asmi. Atma tad brahma aham brahma asmi iti avet. So the self itself, which is the Apara Brahma itself, realized itself as I am Brahman. Okay. So now comes a question. Now, what is this realization that we are talking about? Okay. Now he says that tasmat ajnana adhyaropana nivrittireva atmanam avet ityuktam. Okay. Now atmanam avet. So literally translates to atmanam is self. No, it is the Dvitiya Vibhakti which says the self. Avet is to know. Atmanam avet means that the Brahman, which is the Apara Brahma, knew itself. But he says that's not the actual meaning, because there is nothing to know here. Okay, there's only Brahman that existed. What is there to know? So here, knowing, which is said by the word avet, actually means the removal of the avidya. Tasmat ajnana adhyaropana nivrittihi. So the removal of the ajnana, the imposition of ajnana is what is called as knowing. Okay, now we have to do I have the next slide here? Yeah, okay, let's come to the next the later ones next. So now let me repeat. So what happened here is that the Apara Brahman, the removal of the Apara Brahman, knowing itself as Brahman is what is called as Aham Brahma. Okay, now knowing here, okay, I'll have to say, put knowing within the quotes, because knowing here does not mean in the sense of what we actually know by the word know, because he says Atmanaha Vishikaranam Nasti. So there is an idea called Kartru Karma Virodha, which means that one particular thing cannot be subject to its own knowledge. Okay, let me not go to the details of it. That becomes a bit of detail. But anyway, the idea of knowing here, I mean, it says that the Brahman itself knew himself as, or itself as Brahman, right? Or the Apara Brahman got to know itself as Brahman is the meaning, right? So knowing here means that the raw material for the illusion, which is the avidya, got removed. Okay, ajnana adhyaropana nivrittihi eva atmanam avedityuktam. Ajnana adhyaropana nivrittihi. The removal of the ajnana, the imposition of ajnana or avidya is what is called as knowing. Fine. Now what happened is, here is the story. The story is before the actual realization, Apara Brahman perceived itself as everything that we know of as the universe, just like the serpent is being, the rope is being perceived as serpent. Once the correct knowledge comes, the illusion goes away. So this is what is meant by Aham Brahmasmi, according to the Advaitic interpretation. See, again, I mean, I spend this much of time because everybody seems to know colloquially, I mean, says colloquially that Aham Brahmasmi actually means that, okay, there is a Jiva, there is one thing called Brahman, and Aham Brahmasmi means that, okay, Jiva actually becoming Brahman in whatever sense. That is absolutely not what it is. Okay, according to the Brihad Bhashya itself. It actually means that the Apara Brahma, who is the Apara Brahma, who is the possessor of the illusion, okay, got rid of the avidya, got rid of the illusion. This is what is meant by Aham Brahmasmi. Okay, so now comes the next questions. So there is also Sarva Bhava that the Upanishad talks about, right? Sarvam Abhavat, Brahmava, Sarvam Abhavat, right? So the Brahma became everything. What does this actually mean? So again, here I quote the Brihad Bhashya. It says, Tasmat evam vijnanat tat Brahma sarvam abhavat. That is what is there in Upanishad. The meaning that Sri Shankaracharya gives is the following, that Abrahma adhyaropana apagamat tat karyasya asarvatvasya nivritya sarvam abhavat. Abrahma adhyaropana apagamat. So there was an adhyaropana or an illusion. What was the illusion? The illusion was of the Abrahma. See, the Apara Brahma was thinking itself or himself as I am the doer, I am whatever, right? I am a professor at IISc or somebody else and everything, right? So this is the illusion that the Apara Brahma had. Because the illusion was removed, everything which is asarvatvam, okay, which is a part of not being complete, is a part of the illusion. So the state of not being complete, which is the asarvatva, got removed, because everything that was an effect of avidya got removed. Fine. So now it also says Devatas and Rishis attaining the Brahma Bhava, right? I mean, the Upanishad continues and says that Devatas and Rishis that does this upasana attains Brahma Bhava or Sarva Bhava, right? So this also is meant in the same interpretation, that just all of them are Apara Brahmas. So the illusion or the avidya got removed by this upasana is all it says. Okay. So here Aham Brahmasmi literally, the Tatparya of Aham Brahmasmi is that the avidya, okay, which is the raw material or the reason for illusion, got removed. Okay. Now, there is also this story of Rishi Vamadeva, right? Rishi Vamadeva too described the same thing in the mantra, is what he says. Aham manurabhavam suryascha. The fruit of sarvabhava is shown here. This is again his, I'm quoting from his bhashya. Aham manurabhavam suryascha ityadin. Aham manurabhavam suryascha ityadina. Sarvabhavapatim Brahma Vidya phalam paramrishati. So there is this Brahma Vidya. The fruit or the phala of Brahma Vidya is Sarva Bhava Apatti, right? I mean, that is the question that was asked. Now, Manishya Vadanti, Manishya says that you get everything, Sarva Bhava, from the Brahma Vidya, right? So, this is the description of the Sarva Bhava, because Vamadeva is saying that I am Manu, I am Surya, right? I mean, this is Sarva Bhava. And the phala of Brahma Vidya, which is the Sarva Bhava Apatti, is being described by this mantra. So, now the summary is, Aham here refers to the Apara Brahma, okay? And knowing oneself, which is the Brahma Bhava, is removal of illusion.
So,
okay. No, hold on. Okay, just please hold on. So this is the interpretation. Let me just give you a summary of what we just discussed. Then I'll pause for 2 minutes and then take questions. Okay. Now, again, so let's look at the summary of the Advaita Siddhanta. Again, I mean, I keep saying this disclaimers time and again. This is all my understanding. So my understanding is the following, that there's only the Shuddha Chit or the Parabrahma, which is the Paramartha Sat, okay, and everything else which is other than the Paramartha Sat is a Bhranti Vishaya or subject to illusion. Now, the example is just like a rope is being perceived as a serpent, okay, the Parabrahma is perceived as the entire universe, okay, and that happens because there is Ajnana or Avidya. Now, when the Avidya or the Ajnana gets removed, then this entire illusion of the universe goes away. So Jiva Brahma Aikya does not mean that there are two entities, one which is called Jiva, the other is called Brahma, and they get submerged or something. That is not what is meant. It only means that there is only numerically one Atma, which is called Brahma, and this perception of different Jivas is only an illusion. And once the illusion is removed, which is also called the moksha, what exists, everything that is other than the Parabrahma ceases to exist, okay, because it anyway existed only in perception. It ceases to exist, and what remains is the Parabrahma. So with this context, Shankaracharya gives this meaning to the phrase that we looked at in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So Brahmava idamagra asit ityatra, in the phrase Brahmava idamagra asit, the Brahma that is being referred to is the Apara Brahma, not the Shuddha Brahma. Okay, and Apara Brahma has this illusion. So Agre means Prag Prabodhadapi, before the realization. Okay, or the Brahma Jnana, while in fact the only Shuddha Brahma existed, this Apara Brahma thought itself as, not being Brahma. Okay, it said that it thought that it is not Sarva. See, look at this, no? Because see, this is the thing. Because numerically only one thing exists. Sarvabhava means being that one thing. Okay, so during illusion, the Apara Brahma thinks itself as being Asarva. So what is Asarva? Asarva means everything that is subject to an illusion is Asarva. Okay, when the illusion goes away, what remains is the Sarva Bhava. The Sarva Bhava is the Shuddha Brahma, the true completeness, which is the Shuddha Brahma itself. So during the existence of persistence of avidya or the illusion, Apara Brahma thought itself as Abrahmasmi, Asarvanchasmi, and all that, Kartaham, Kriyavan, Sukhi, Dukhi, Ityadi. And when a teacher comes and the Prabodha or the Jnana appears, so it perceives itself as Brahma. So again, there is no perception here, because when the true perception or the Brahma Jnana appears, there is nothing to be perceived. Okay, that's what he says as Atmano Vishayikaranam Nasti Kartrakarma Virodhat. I mean, in fact, I should tell you here that both Madhvacharya and Shankaracharya has written an elaborate bhashya to this phase, to this short paragraph. In fact, Shankara Bhashya, I'll just show you maybe that. You see my screen, right? Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Do you when you see the Bhashya now, right?
Yes.
Or do you only see my presentation, or do you see the Bhashya also?
No, we can see the Bhashya. Now there is a red color text.
Correct. Red color text is the Upanishad text, okay? And this is the Shankara Bhashya. Look at the Bhashya. It's an elaborate description of what I just summarized. It's very beautifully written. Okay, there is an elaborate description of what I just said. Okay, so he clearly mentions, I've taken some excerpt from here, right? He clearly mentions that there is nothing to be known here. I mean, Aham Brahmasmi iti avet, right? There is nothing to be known. What actually happens is the avidya, ajnana adhyaropana nivrittihi, the removal of the aropa or the imposition of avidya is what is called as knowing here. There is nothing to be known. Okay, that is what is meant by Aham Brahmasmi, which is that the Apara Brahma, the illusion that the Apara Brahma has gets removed, is what is meant by Aham Brahmasmi. Okay, it does not mean that I am equal to Brahma, because as I said, no, the word Aham means Apara Brahma here. Okay. Okay, so that's the Advaitic the summary of the Advaitic interpretation. Two things here. We are top of the hour. It's 5 p.m. But I think I need 15 more minutes to talk about the Dvaita interpretation as well. And then if we can extend the session by 15 minutes, we can have a half an hour question answer session. Or we can cut short the question answer session by 15 minutes. But I do need 15 more minutes. Okay.
Yes.
That's one thing. The second thing is I'll stop now for a couple of minutes. And I'll take questions if you have any on the Advaitic interpretation. Only 2 questions, please, because we can have an elaborate question answers later. Any questions you might have on this?
Then quick question, Anand.
Sure.
That see, when they're Apara Brahma, right? We are saying that his illusion is removed, and now it is Brahma itself. Now Brahma is all knowing, means now it should know, right? That okay, some parts of me itself are an illusion. Even that is not to be known, is it? Even that is not.
See, there is no part in Brahma. Parabrahma is Akhanda.
See, the Parabrahma should be the. I mean, what is the definition of Brahma in that case in Advaita text?
The definition of Brahma is Nitya Shuddha Buddha, right? I mean, which is Akhanda, which is the Paramartha Sat.
Yeah. So, but then.
So it is it has no illusion, so it has no jnana. It is not the kartru. Everything Satyam Jnana Manantam Brahma, right? I mean, it is the Sadrupa, Chidrupa, and Ananda Rupa, but it does not know anything, because there is nothing to know. Right?
It's a little confusing because
No, it
see,
is.
Apara Brahma like us, we do exist. So which means
No, we
that
don't.
know
No,
that
we
we
don't. We
exist,
don't.
right? We are there. So I mean, and we are part of him, or we are him. Once we, once we get out of illusion, so then even more he should know, right?
The thing is, we are a part of Parabrahma's illusionary perception.
Correct. But then Parabrahma is
We are, I should not be saying this, but roughly it's like, we are a part of somebody else's dream. When somebody else wakes up, we don't exist. Right?
Yeah, but he.
So it's like seeing ourselves in a dream. So we are seeing ourselves in a dream. Let's say, sometimes we do see ourselves in a dream, and when we wake up, there is nothing, no?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I understand that this is too short a time to give you a complete. These questions are valid, and these are very well considered and answered. Okay. But I mean, see. Yeah, so 1 hour is too short a time. As I said, this is just to whet your appetite. It's one has to dwell into it, but yeah, so that's what it is.
Okay.
Sir, namaste. One doubt. Isn't this exactly like the Sankhya's notion of Purusha and the multiple Purushas that appear after Srishti and then realization through knowledge of discretion and then...
No, see, in Sankhya Siddhanta, as far as I know, there's no idea of illusion. There's no Bhranti. There's no Maya. Multiple Purushas do exist. The Tattva Jnana, what happens, when somebody gets a Jnana, there's no underlying illusion that is there. So there is Purusha and there is Prakriti. The creation of the Srishti still happens. Here, there's only, as I said, there's only one Atma and there's illusion. It's only a Vyavaharika Sat. That's why I gave you, see, the analogy of dreams is very aptly used in Advaita. Just like you see objects in dream, you get the perception of the entire universe. That way, it is very different from Sankhya, because in the striking difference is there is no avidya and there is no adhyaropa, or the illusion in Sankhya Mata.
So in a way, can we just say that Advaita is Sankhya made consistent?
No, please, please, let's not do that. As I said, no opinions. I'm a thorough academic by profession and also by practice. Okay, I'm interested in academic debates. But yeah, so opinions, you can ask my opinion later, but yeah, so I'll refrain from giving my opinions now. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else, or shall we move
on? Then one more quick question. So if Vamadeva understood the Aham Brahmasmi, then where is the question of Surya, Manu, etc.? Then there is nobody.
Good question. Good question. That is what is, that is one of the points that is made against this interpretation from the Dvaita community.
Okay, understood.
So I have that covered in my last slide, critical analysis. I'll talk about it later. Okay. Okay, great. Let's come to the Dvaita interpretation. I'll show you the. Okay, so I think I have moved it somewhere else. Yeah. Anyway, so again, Srimad Madhvacharya gives an elaborate account of this Shruti. Okay, it runs hundreds of pages. Of course, I have a book that has the Vyakhya also. It runs for hundreds of pages. Very nicely done. Okay. See, one thing that is to be noted about Madhvacharya's interpretations, be it Upanishads, be it Brahma Sutras or anything, is that is very, very radical and novel. Okay, he has this habit of deviating from the tradition, okay, whatever the tradition means. So much so that he changes the very Vishayavakyas in the Brahma Sutras, okay, and he goes to the etymological roots of things to derive meanings, and he's very innovative and radical in the way he gives his meaning. Okay, he does the same thing here. I've just listed some salient points in the Madhva Bhashya. And then I'll consolidate everything and give you the consolidated meaning according to Madhva Bhashya. Okay. The first thing that is said is the words Aham, Asmi are not what you know from the elementary Sanskrit. Aham is not the Prathama Ekavachana of the Asmat Pratipadika, is the first thing that he says. See, Aham in routine Sanskrit, day-to-day Sanskrit means I. He says Aham does not mean I here. Okay, and Asmi is to be, right? I mean, it is the Uttama Purusha Ekavachana of the dhatu, right? Astistaha santi. So now asadhatu. So now Asmi is not a verb. Aham does not mean I, and Asmi is not the verb. Okay, they're both adjectives. That is one thing that he says. Okay, so what does this Aham means then? Aham is an adjective that means one who cannot be discarded by anyone. Aheyatva dahannama. Aheyam Aham. Okay, so Heya, see that this is one other salient feature of the Madhva Bhashyas, is that he always goes to the etymological roots and then derives meaning. Okay, Heya means in Sanskrit, okay, one that is to be given up. Okay, Aheya is something that is not to be given up or not to be discarded. So Aham, Aheyatvad Aham, Aheyam Aham. So one which cannot be discarded by anyone is called Aham. It is not the Prathama Vibhakti Ekavachana of the Asmat Pratipadika. Okay, similarly, Asmi is not a verb form. It means Asti iti meyam. Aham, Asti iti meyam Asmi. Okay, there is us and me. I'll refrain from going into the grammatical details of it. I mean, the Tika show how these are grammatically valid as well. Okay, I'll not go to that because of the interest of time. So asa, me. Okay, me is meyam, which means that to be identified, to be known. To be known as what? To be identified as one with independent existence. Asti iti meyam. One which is to be known as one which is to be known, or one which is to be identified as the one with independent existence. Okay, swatantra astita. Right? So now Aham means one which cannot be discarded. Asmi means the one that is to be known as one that has independent existence. Okay, and Brahman, there is, see, Aham Brahma Asmi, right? Brahma means Purna or with infinite gunas. Brahantaha Asmin Guna iti Brahman. Okay, Asti iti meyam iti Asmi. Aheyatvad Aham. Okay, these are the three salient features. Now, I have not consolidated the meaning yet. Let me just consolidate it once. So now you should keep this in your mind. Aham does not mean I. It means one which cannot be discarded by anyone. Asmi does not mean is not the verb form that says to be. It means that one which is to be known as the one that has independent existence. Brahman means Purna, okay, or with infinite gunas. Now there is also the mention of Sarva Bhava, right? I mean, multiple times, right? Brahma became Sarva, the Devatas become Sarva, Vamadeva became Sarva, and all that, right? What is this Sarva Bhava? Sarva Bhava is attaining respective completeness, which is Svayogya Purnata. Here, Madhvacharya says that Srimad Madhvacharya mentions here that Sarva Bhava means Svayogya Purnata. To become complete is what is, see, Sarva is everything, right? So under the assumption that everything has limited capability, to be complete to their capacity can be called as Sarva Bhava as well, right? I mean, everything, right? If I mean, there are lots of the examples that are quoted from Purana to corroborate all these interpretations that are given. That is again one other extraordinary salient feature of Srimad Madhvacharya's Bhashya, that he never makes a statement without citing relevant literature. Okay, so he gives enormous amounts of evidences from Puranas and other Shrutis to corroborate his meaning. Anyway, so here Sarva Bhava means Svayogya Purnata, which is that to be complete, to attain the respective completeness. I mean, as this example is given, right? A small a tumbler can be complete, and so can be a big pot. Both of them can be complete in their own respects, and both of them are, I mean, becoming complete is what is called as the Sarva Bhava. Okay, and in the case of Vamadeva's mantras, okay, so maybe it is getting a little heavy. So let me go to the Vamadeva mantra in a while. Okay, so now Aham, Asmi, Brahma, and Sarvabhava are clear, I suppose. Okay, now we shall construct a coherent meaning by merging all these. Okay, now what is the coherent meaning that is given? So if you remember the context, what was the question that was asked? The question that was asked is, how did Brahman attain Purnata? Okay, now why have I written here as Purnata is because the question that was actually asked was, how did Brahman attain Sarvabhava? And because we translated Sarvabhava as attaining the respective Purnata, the question is, how did Brahman attain Purnata? And here for the Madhvacharya interpretation, Brahman is the Parabrahman. Maybe I should have mentioned that. Brahman Narayanakyam. So it is very well recognized in the in Srimad Madhvacharya's literature that the Brahman is the Gunapurna Lakshmipati Narayana. Okay, so the entity that is recognized as Narayana is the one that is recognized as the Brahman. The Upanishad of Brahma is the same Lakshmipati that is identified as Narayana. Okay, Brahma Shabdascha Vishnu Eva. This is the statement that he makes in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya. Brahma Shabdascha Vishnu Eva. Okay, so Brahman here is the Vishnu himself. Now, the question that is asked by the Upanishad itself is, how did Vishnu or the Brahman attain Purnata? The answer is pretty simple. By knowing himself, Atmanam. See, if you carefully look at it, the text goes like this. Tat Atmanam eva avet aham Brahma asmi iti. Tat Atmanam eva avet aham Brahma asmi iti. Okay. Now he says Atmanam eva. So so here avet, the word avet means knowing itself, because there is no removal of the illusion, unlike the other case. So here avet means knowing. So the Brahma, Atmanam eva. It's very hard to translate it in English. Atmanam eva started knowing itself. Atmanam eva avet. It started knowing itself as what? As Aham, as Asmi, and as Brahma. Got the meaning? So let me repeat it. It is Brahma, Atmanam eva, Aham iti avet, Asmi iti avet, Brahma iti avet. Or I can even leave out the word Brahma. Tat. So in the previous phrase, let me go to the Upanishad Mula here, right? Here, if you look at this, let me just highlight this. Brahma va idamagra asit tat atmanam eva avet aham Brahma asmi iti. Brahma va idamagra asit. Agre. So here in the Madhvacharya's interpretation, the word agre means Srishtev Prak. Okay, before the Srishti happened, the Brahma, the Vishnu or the Brahman existed. Okay. Tat. So here, once the word Brahma has already been said, you don't have to again say Brahma. Okay. You can use pronouns, isn't it? I mean, if you say Rama went to home, he started eating. So you don't have to say Rama went to home, Rama started eating. Okay. So you have already said the noun. You only have to use pronouns, right? Accordingly, Brahma va idamagra asit. In the beginning of the Srishti, Brahma existed. Vishnu existed. Okay, fine. Now, Tat, the Brahma, Atmanam eva, the oneself itself. It started Atmanam eva avet. It started knowing itself. It knew itself as what? As Aham, as Brahma, as Asmi. Right? So the meaning the Srimad Madhvacharya gives is the following, that Brahma, Tat Brahma, Tat is equal to Brahma, Atmanam eva, Aham iti avet, Brahma iti avet, Asmi iti cha avet. Tasmat tat sarvam abhavat. And because it knew itself as Aham, which is not to be discarded by anyone, and Purna, and something that is to be having independent existence, it is complete. So anybody, so let me go to the complete meaning here. Okay, so this is Aham Brahmasmi. In this meaning, Aham Brahma and Asmi are all adjectives to Atmanam. Tat Atmanam. Okay, Atmanam is the subject to the cognition, which is being pointed out in the word avet. Okay, kim avet? Atmanam avet. Kaha avet? I should not be saying kaha avet. The kartru, right? Brahma word is again Pumsakalinga. I should not be saying kaha avet. Right? You should say kim avet. Who knew? Tat avet. Okay. What did the tat know? Atmanam avet. What did the tat know Atmanam as? The tat, which is the Brahma, which is the knower, knew itself as Aham, as Brahma, as Asmi. They are all adjectives to Atmanam. Tat Atmanam Ahamiti avet, Brahmetyavet, asmi iti cha avet. Okay. Now this is Aham Brahmasmi. Okay. So now comes this thing, right? I mean, Devatas and Rishis who also do this upasana as Aham Brahma will become Sarva. This becomes very easy now, right? Now, all we have to say is Devatas and Rishis too have to know him, which is Tat, as Brahma, as Aham, and as Asmi, right? The Devatas have to know the Brahman as Aham, which means not I, Aheya, right? Devata should know that, okay, Brahman is something that is not to be discarded by anything. As I said, right, very beautiful interpretation. He says, Dravyam karma cha kalascha swabhavo jiva eva cha yadanugrahata santi nasanti edupekshaya. So you have to always think of Brahman as Aheya. There's also a Brahma Sutra that explains this. Atmeti upagachanti grahayanti cha, right? You have to always identify Brahman as the one that you cannot discard. Okay, you're always dependent on the Brahman. So that is the idea of Aheyatva. Everybody, anybody, they would be Devatas or Rishis or Manushas, anyone who does this upasana, anyone who knows Brahman as Aham, anyone who knows or who does an upasana of Brahman as Asmi, anyone who does an upasana of Brahman as Brahman, okay, will attain Sarva Bhava. What is Sarva Bhava? The respective completeness, which is moksha. Okay, so this is Atmanameva Avet Aham Brahmasmiti. In the case of Brahman, the Brahman knew itself as Aham, Brahma and Asmi. The Devatas and Rishis and Manushas have to do an upasana of Aham, Brahma and Asmi. Okay, and now comes the Vamadeva case. Okay, so it says, the Upanishad ends by saying, look, Vamadeva did this upasana of Aham, Brahma, Asmi and started getting this revelation of this mantra, Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. Right? What is the idea of this? So here, Aham has a different meaning. Here, Aham means the internal self, which is the Antaryami, the idea of Antaryami. Okay, and also Srimad Madhacharya gives multiple corroborations or the Pramana Vakyas to justify his interpretation of this Antaryami thing. He says that the Aham, the word Aham, actually refers to the Antaryami. That is the true meaning of the word Aham. Okay, so in the Vamadeva Sukta, which is Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha, the Aham means the Antaryami, which is the internal, the Brahman that resides inside of the Vamadeva is what is refers to as Aham. Okay, so now Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha actually means the following, that my Antaryami became Manu. So Manu here does not mean this guy, right, which is the Dharma Pravartaka Manu, the Manu Shastra Manu. It actually means mana avabodhana is the corresponding dhatu. Manu means somebody who knows all. So Vamadeva is saying that my Antaryami became somebody who knows everything. Okay. Suryascha. Suribihi prapyaha Suryaha. So Surya is not the sun. Okay. Surya means the one that is to be sought or attained by seekers. That is called that's the meaning of the word Surya. Now Vamadeva says that the same Vishnu or the Brahman that resides inside me is the one that knows everything, is the one that is to be sought by all seekers. That is Aham Manurabhavam Suryascha. Okay, so now what is the connection between this Aham Brahmasmi upasana and this is that one who starts doing the upasana of Aheyatva, Asmi and Brahmata will become the Drashtara or will become a Rishi who can get additional knowledge like this, which is my Antaryami is the Antaryami of everybody. Okay, that is how you put the Vamadeva mantra in the context. Okay, now the last question that we asked is, what is the final message that the Upanishad is trying to give is that this Upanishad is saying that one who does this upasana will attain the respective completeness like Vamadeva who became a Drashta. Okay, so now it is saying that one needs to, because Brahman himself knows himself as Aheya and Asmi and Brahman, one who does that sort of an upasana also attains their respective completeness by doing this sort of an upasana. That is the meaning that is given in Srimad Madhacharya's Brihad Bhashya. Okay, now I have one last slide, okay, which is that now that we have two interpretations, okay, so which one is logical? I will have to now start asking these questions. I thought I would spend the most of the time in this slide, but I had to spend a lot of time in giving these interpretations. Maybe we'll just take 5 minutes and finish the lecture. Now, I'll have to do a critical analysis of both the interpretations. So in the formal analysis, which is the Advaitic interpretation, one has to resort to what is called as the Lakshanavritti. Again, this bit of details, okay? Let me anyway go through this for the sake of completeness. One has to resort to what is known as the indirect meanings or Lakshanavritti. Okay, so now what do you mean by Lakshanavritti? Now, in the Shabda Shastra or the etymological science, it is said that, see, if you make a statement and if you call, let's say that, you know, a kid shows at the picture of a lion and calls it a lion. Okay, the word lion there does not mean the actual lion. It actually means something that is a picture that resembles the form of the lion, right? So this is called the Lakshanavritti, which is that the words do not convey the direct meaning. You have to take indirect meanings. Now, in the Advaitic interpretation, what is to be done is Aham. See, look at that. Na? Aham Brahmasmi. It is talking about the removal of the illusion and existence of one Atma. It is, see, even in the realm of Advaita philosophy, Aham, which is the Apara Brahma, and Brahma, which is the Parabrahma, are not equal. So what it is trying to say is that the underlying Chit, the Shuddha Chit, is one. In other words, there is one Shuddha Chit or the Parabrahma that is under the illusion, and after illusion, this gets removed. I mean, so the illusion gets removed. The question that is often asked is, how do you get the meaning of removal of the illusion by this phrase Aham Brahmasmi? Okay, you have to resort to a lot of indirect meanings to actually get there. Okay, it is neither etymological. I mean, in the Madhva interpretation, right? I mean, at least you can show the. I mean, you can derive etymological have etymological derivations for the meanings that are given. But here, Aham Brahma Asmi does not mean that Aham, I will become Brahma. That is not what it means, right? I mean, according to the Shankara Bhashya itself, it means that there is one Brahma whose illusion gets removed. How did you get, to derive that meaning from that particular phrase is a little difficult. So that is one critique that is often made on that. The other thing is, so there are lots of interpolations that are to be made, right? After being conveyed by a guru. So if I go to the Bhashya, Kathanchid Acharyena Dayaluna Pratibodhitam Aparam Brahma Aham Brahmasmi iti avet. See, look at the context. It says Agre Brahmaiva Asit. Brahmava idam Agre Asit. And there Agre means before the realization. And there Brahma refers to the Apara Brahma. Okay. So it says the Apara Brahma before the realization thought itself as Abrahma. Okay. Then what? I mean, then when some teacher came and started giving, started making it realize, so this has to be supplied. It is not there in the Upanishad. Okay. See, if you interpret this Agre as before the realization and everything that comes after as after realization, there is nothing that explicitly says that everything that we are talking about, which is where the Aham Brahmasmi occurs, as something that happened after realization. So it only says Agre Brahma Asit. Okay. Then it says Tadatmanameva Aved Aham Brahmasmi. So there is no, I mean, there is a major event that is happening in between, which is the realization. So that the event of realization is not explicitly mentioned in the Upanishad, which has to be supplied. Okay. So that makes it a little far-fetched. It is one other critique that is said. Okay. And one other that is mentioned in Srimad Madhacharya's Bhashya is the redundancy of the word Atmanam. Okay, which is here what it goes. Let me again go to the original script. So it says, Brahmava idamakrasi tat atmanameva aham brahmasmi iti avet. Why do you need this word Atmanam? If you were to convey that it itself knew as Brahma, okay, it knew itself as Brahma, there is already Tat. So this says Tat Aham Brahmasmi iti avet is enough. Why do you need Atmanam there? There's no need to have the word Atmanam. That is redundant in this interpretation. So in Srimad Madhacharya's interpretation, so Atmanam is the noun form. Everything else becomes an adjective. So Tat Atmanam Aham iti Brahma iti Asmi iti chavet. So that becomes meaningful. Now in the other interpretation, if you are to say Tat aham brahmasmi iti avet. Why do you need atmanam? That's extra. No? So that is one other thing that is said. The redundancy of the word atmanam is one other critique that is said. And knowing self is to be interpreted as removal of illusion. So let me go to the Bhashya again here. It says, Ajnana adhyaropana nivrittireva avedityuktam. This is the Shankara Bhashya. Ajnana adhyaropana nivrittireva atmanam avedityuktam na atmanaha vishayikaranam. So the word avet, which comes from the root word, etymological dhatu of avarakshana gatikanti, avet means that to know. Avet means new, okay, or to know. So now to interpret the dhatu of avet or to know as the removal of illusion is again a little far-fetched. Okay, that is one other critique that is given. And sarva bhava does not make sense after delusion of vidya. This is one other interesting observation that is made. Sarvam abhavat, right? Vamadeva also, I think somebody asked that question, right? Vamadeva cannot be Manu and Surya, right? Because all are apara brahmas, and this is post the prabodha. So after the realization happens, there is no Manu, there is no Surya, there is neither Vamadeva. Okay, so now when there is no Vamadeva and no Surya, no Manu after post realization, how can you talk of sarva bhava? So even though asarva bhava nivritti is what is called as sarva bhava, right? So when after realization there is no sarva to talk about sarva bhava. Okay, and there is another thing that is said is there is no correspondence between the question and answer. The question is, what did Brahma know to become sarva is the question. The answer is that the illusion that the apara Brahma had got lifted. That is the answer, right? I mean, this doesn't seem to be having a good correspondence. The final thing is the ultimate purport of Gunapurti is not served. This is one nice observation that Srimad Madhvacharya makes, that all the text, the Upanishad and Vedic texts that are there, the final ultimate purpose of them is to show one or the other quality or the guna of Parabrahman. Because as I said, if you go back to the first slide where I talked of the need, the ultimate aim of all Shastras is to ensure adukkha mitarat sarvam jiva evat dukkhinaha tesham dukkha prahanaya shuchiresha pravartate. So the ultimate aim of all Shastras is to make a jiva attain the apavarga or moksha. Now that happens only through bhakti, and bhakti develops only through see, how do you start liking someone? You start liking someone only if you know some good things about the person, right? And if you want to like someone who you have not seen, the only way to do is to start knowing more and more about him or her and knowing the qualities of that particular thing or that person. That should be the sole purport of the entire Shastras. And when Shastra talk about Aham Brahmasmi, it is actually talking about Aheyatva, which is a guna, the Brahmata and the Asmita, which are all gunas of Brahma. So in this interpretation of the removal of the avidya, the gunapurti of Brahman is not served. It is one other critical interpretation that is given for this meaning. And also for the I was talking to Venkateshji that I had one more slide that I had to make. I didn't have time to do it. So in the Madhva interpretation, right, the question that might be asked is, right, I mean, even though they are not indirect meanings, you still have to go to you have to resort to unconventional meanings. Okay, so how do you get to unconventional meanings? Aham actually means I in conventional Sanskrit. How do you resort to unconventional meaning? Is a question that is often asked, which is kind of answered often. And by the way, all these questions, so I should tell you this, that these debates, which are purely academic in nature, they kept happening. They still keep happening. There are works that are written. I should definitely make this statement. There is one work that is an academic work that is composed by Sri Vyasatirtha, who comes in the Madhva lineage. So he writes this entire work, which is called Nyayamritam, where all these things, most of these things are taken from, these critical analysis is taken from the Nyayamrita text. And there, lot of these things are analyzed. So the Advaitic ideas and all these are analyzed. But I should mention that it's a huge, it's a magnum opus. It's a humongous body of work. Not even once Sri Vyasatirtha makes any personal comments. Okay, so it's a highly academic piece of work. and it's a highly academic debate. There is nothing personal about anything of this. And what's interesting again is, this was answered. The Nyayamritam was answered by one Madhusudana Saraswati, who wrote a work called Advaita Siddhi, okay, where all the criticisms that were made on Advaita in Nyayamritam were attempted to be answered. Now, even there, no personal remarks that were made. And Advaita Siddhi got answered, and that a rejoinder came to a rejoinder. It came again. There is at least 10 or 12 for and against works that are happening. Even today, debates happen. There is Nyayamritam, there is Advaita Siddhi, then there came Brahmanandi, then there came Kantakodhara, then there was Laghu Chandrika, then there came another. There's this parampara still exists today, and I think that's the beauty of Indian way of looking at things without being personal. There's absolutely nothing personal here. As I said, two different interpretations, very, very orthogonal interpretations, right? And one has to apply logic and see, what makes sense to each other, what makes sense to one, and then do the corresponding upasana. Okay? So that has been the purpose of all these debates, and I thought that this would be an opportunity to simply present my understanding of this Shruti according to both the schools of interpretations. As I said, anybody who is interested, the entire purpose of this, one of the major purposes of this lecture is to whet your appetite. And if some of you come back, not to me, or to maybe go to any other teacher, be it of Advaita or Dvaita tradition, and put in some more time in understanding these nuances of Shastras, I think my objective would be served. Okay, so all these things are very, very intricate and extremely deep and delicate. So one very discouraging trend that I'm seeing these days, especially in social media, is that people take these things for granted. Okay, so not without knowing the Vedanta in this depth, be it from the Advaita school or Dvaita school, people simply make all kinds of statements and give opinions out there, and that takes very ugly and personal turns, which as I said, I'm an academic by training and profession. I mean, that's not healthy at all. So I think people should refrain from making personal comments and resort to very, very rigorous academic debates that have been there in our tradition, and to continue that kind of a debate. So now, as I said, right, I mean, even if you go and talk to a good Advaitic scholar, he would say that Aham Brahmasmi does not mean that Jiva is equal to Brahma. Okay, so because they would have studied the Brihad Bhashya of Shankaracharya very nicely. So now this is the actual meaning, and all the Shastra ideas have non-apparent or Shastra interpretations have non-apparent meanings to it. One has to go deep into it to understand that thing. And let me just conclude. So now, in the beginning, I said a set of shlokas, right? I mean, those were salutations to all the people from whose work I prepared the text. I referred to, of course, the Upanishad, whose Pratipadya is Sriman Narayana himself. I referred to the Bhashya of Sriman Madhvacharya, and I referred to Sri Jayatirtha's Tikas and the other Bhashyas and Bhabodha of. In fact, for the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhashya of Sriman Madhvacharya, Sri Raghuttama Tirtha has written a very nice commentary called Bhabodha. I referred to a lot of that text as well. So so I'm indebted to all those scholars who gave these interpretations, and I also referred to the Brihad Bhashya of Shankaracharya that was made available in this website, which is not here, which is called Advaita Sharada. And when you can obtain all Madhvacharya's Sarmula Granthas, in fact, I have to introduce you to this wonderful source of knowledge, right? I mean, here there's a website called Advaita Sharada, which has all searchable text of the entire literature of Sri Shankaracharya. Okay, and similarly, there is another website which is called Anandam Karanda, which I was a little part of, where we have made the entire Saramula available, okay, which is in the searchable format. I used both of them, and I thank the creators and all the rishis and gurus of our parampara. Okay, and again, last but not the least, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. As I said, this was an amazing opportunity for me to go back and look at all these scriptures and refresh my memory as well. Thanks to Krishna for connecting us both, and thanks Venkatesh ji and the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. So let us do a samarpana of this Jnana Yajna to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna through Sriman Madhvacharya. So, Madhvesha Arpanamastu, Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Okay, so I'll stop here and we can have the question answering session if anybody has questions.
No, I just, Namaskar, my name is Shri Priya Sridhar. I just wanted to know, in your opinion, which is the good book that has analyzed the same Aham Brahmasmi in Vishishtadvaitam? Because I read a lot of junk on the internet of the Sri Bhashya, but I haven't seen any authentic Sri Bhashyam's interpretations on this. Have you come across that? Anything?
Yeah. See, my suggestion would be the following. Let me just remove my earphone. More general answer to this. The answer is that please refrain from studying translations.
Yeah, no, I don't
study the text in their original form. You have to spend some time with a guru, but it's worth it. Okay. So look at the Brihad Bhashya of Sri Ramanujacharya himself and the Vedanta Deshika's commentaries.
Okay, Vedanta Deshika.
Okay, so don't go to as you. I don't want to put that word junk. Okay, but these interpretations are people's opinions. It's okay to study opinions, but you should form your own opinion as well of different topics. Right? It's always good to look at originals. I would say go and look at the Brihad Bhashya of Sri Ramanujacharya himself.
Okay.
See, just to facilitate easy facilitation of the question answering session, can you please raise your hands and call out names so that we can take questions? So everybody who has questions can just raise your hands and I'll start calling names one after the other.
Yeah, Pratibha Vaidya.
Okay, so I think Ms. Anagha has a question.
Namaskara, Gurugale.
Anagha, go on.
Arna, I have 3 questions actually. One, you
Ms.
said
Anagha,
that...
can you hear me?
Yes, Arna, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Maybe you're speaking on mute. I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear her?
No.
Yeah, yes,
Arna,
we can hear.
Arna, can you hear me?
Okay, so maybe some problem with your microphone, Anagha. Maybe you should. Yeah.
But we can hear her.
Shri Pratibha Vaidya.
Yeah, Namaskara,
Please go
Gurugale.
on.
Yeah. Mine is a small question. Actually, I just want to know.
I'm not able to.
Can you hear me?
Either. Let me connect my earphone again.
She has to unmute. I don't.
Can anybody else?
No. No. Everybody is. I'm able to hear. I think the problem is from your side. Probably you have to wear your. You have to, that's.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Maybe he's the only one who's not able to hear.
Yeah, we all are able to hear to each other. So he's not able to hear us.
Exactly. So what should he do? What should he do?
Let me log out and log in again.
Yeah, that's the best option.
Yeah, we are hearing both voices, says everyone, but yeah, I can't hear. Let me just log out and log in again. Give me a minute.
Perfect. Understandable. Is it Sri Priya Sridhar who actually asked that question?